Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. Another recap episode. I enjoy doing these. Covers from episode 1276 up through 1299, but it includes some other video-only episodes I posted to YouTube. My podcast is audio only. If I have something to express that's video, I put it on YouTube. And some people go there. It's not my emphasis, but some things beg to be pictured and not just talked about. First of all, thanks sponsors, Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. First of all, if you were or are a listener on YouTube, the YouTube posting is after it comes out on Podbean, on the various distribution services. My service that I used got messed up in some way. I didn't do anything wrong, but they said YouTube changed some of their requirements or whatever. And so there were a couple weeks there where my episodes did not post to YouTube. First of all, I'm sorry on behalf of my service. Frankly, the frustration all of us get was when I asked them, I said, hey, they aren't posting. And they said, we've got a problem with YouTube. But what I would say that's common to our experience in the hobby is that they were not transparent enough. They basically just said, it's not our fault. It's YouTube, blaming the other party, which in fact that may have been, but they didn't really give me any details. And I would have loved some more details to know, is this a temporary problem? And they seemed to indicate it wasn't temporary, but it took a couple of weeks and it's not fully resolved yet. So my apologies for that. I really appreciate the YouTube community. It's a smaller group for me because I don't promote it. But on the other hand, I get a lot of great comments and questions from there. One of the reasons I like the recaps is because in my life, in my real life, I frequently get a day behind or a year behind on some of the various news or movies or TV shows. So I'm typically recapping or looking at recaps in order to get news. I'm very happy with finding out what happened yesterday instead of what happened last minute or in the last few weeks. When I watch movies on the treadmill or TV shows, they're TV shows that have been out a while enough that people said, hey, this was good. So in the same spirit, I'm trying to do recap episodes in case you got behind. You can hear a snippet about each of the episodes of the last few weeks. It's not a pet peeve because I think it's just a different approach, but many of the price guide type entities, the card ladders and the market movers, it's not a stock market, but sometimes it feels like it when they're talking about a percentage increase over a week, over some short period of time. Really just one sale and it's up 37% or something like that, or that they're down 1% a month. I would still enjoy the hobby if cards went down 1% a month, maybe not 100 straight months. I have to have cards going up every single month. Sometimes they go up. Sometimes they go down. Some things go up more than others. One of the problems with having instant price guides as opposed to monthly price guides is that these ups and downs are not catastrophic, but they just seem to be more important. If a player has a good game, bad game, big night, poor night, the price of the card, yeah, probably is affected, but over the long haul, the player has to produce on a consistent basis. Okay, 1276, first episode of the recap, authentication conundrums. Rich and I just got on a conversation about experiences we had, probably all in good fun, with getting his signature, my signature, other people's signatures, and other kinds of authentication issues. That was just fun. So I hope you enjoy that. If people seem to enjoy my episodes with Rich, I know I do. 1079 and 1080, I reserve the numbers in the 1,000 to 1,100 for video episodes. I occasionally get boxes from Panini, Upper Deck, and Topps, and the Panini Luminance and the Panini Prism Deca that I got, one football, one basketball, did a reveal. And it's, like I say, I could do an audio podcast or I could do a video reveal. It just depends on how I feel or what type of product is. I want to add value. I want to have sports card insights in every episode, whether it's video or audio. But that was fun. Again, thank you, Panini, for those boxes. 1277 was the last part of my conversation with Greg Sobocinski, who was looking to get into the industry as a career, sharp guy. That was fun to just explore. Because I always think, what would I do if I were him? And I want to share that. I have personal biases, as everyone knows, everyone has, but my best to Greg. 1278 were the questions I had from Phil Pierce. I'd seen him at a few shows. He comes down from Oklahoma City, And I'd seen him at the Dallas show. Then I saw him at Rich's Dodge show. And a very nice guy. And I said, well, let's discuss some of those questions on the podcast. He said, oh, you don't have to do that. I'm just a regular hobbyist. Actually, Phil, you're not a regular hobbyist. You are a hobbyist. You are a collector, but you have had some business aspects that came out. So you have an interesting story. Every collector that I've ever met has an interesting story. And some buy but don't sell, and some do different things. But Phil had an interesting hobby journey that he is still enjoying. 1279 were the card company episodes with Rich Klein. A little bit more about the defunct card companies. We'd been asked about that, and we both remember the heyday when there were 11 or 13 football licensed companies. Again, not room for all of them. Some of them made it, some of them didn't. Most didn't, but that didn't mean they didn't have some redeeming value. 1280, how to price unique items. That got some action. I will say this, it's easier to do it now than it was back in my prime, in my day. We really didn't do that too much in terms of our monthly price guides. We would report if there was a sale. But again, most of these things are really not fungible. Even all 10s are not created equal. So we got into that. I don't know that we gave the definitive answer other than people find a way. And if they mess up, the market will tell them. That's why it's difficult to do fixed price with a unique item unless you put it up there way high. 1281 was about cataloging and how that's not happening to the same extent it did when Rich and I were mainly doing that. It's an important aspect. I think my friends in the magazine and OPG department, they're tracking with just what comes out. We had the same battle. We had to keep up with what the new stuff was, but also be working our way back when we had reported finds of older sets that had never been discovered. 1282 is the friendly dollar box battles with Rich. We've got different approaches. Rich keeps buying dollar box cards. When he gets up to a certain amount, then he has his own table. And then I'm realizing I think he then misses going to the dollar boxes because he's got to sit behind his table, which, as I've said, I don't like being behind the table. I don't know that Rich does either. Rich likes to circulate. So then he sells out and then he comes back and works the dollar boxes. And again, we have completely different approaches and a lot of comradeship. 1283 was the tribute to Pete Rose, worthy of a tribute, a great hitter, a fierce competitor. Anytime you have obituaries and memorials and things like that, it's always all positive. It's not hard to find a lot of positives for Pete Rose. 1284, the 10 listener questions 4.0. I was grouping them in 10s in this segment just because I think I can fit it into 15 minutes, and I generally can. The other thing I'm doing on those listener questions is I'm using AI to summarize and put in like a YouTube summary. There's an aspect that will tell you at what timestamp certain things were talked about. With some of the other podcasts we do that too, especially if you're listening, Josh and Chris and Christina and even Nick, anybody with the crossover, it'd be great to get an idea of what is being talked about during that I will say excellent 2 hours. I've said it's the best 30 minutes in the hobby. I just don't know when it's going to get to something that so I'd love to do that. Now, on the other hand, they may not want to do that because they may want me to listen to the whole thing, and I don't do it every time, but I do it lots of times, and it's really good the way they address questions that come to them. Dating the Cup, 1285, trying to make the point that these companies are not capricious in the way they date the products. There's certain rules, there's certain things the average collector, even average dealer may not be aware of that are licensing situations, royalty situations, release dates, and player inclusions and things like that. So again, thank you, Upper Deck. 1286 was the second part from Phil. 1287, some more listener questions. You can see there's a summary that's listed there. 1288, the outtakes from Hobby Hotline. Always enjoyed that and always encourage you to watch it and or listen to Hobby Hotline when it comes out. I'm on once a month. 1289, the tough cards that I did with Rich Klein. That was a comment from Eddie Healy. I hope you listened to it. If you didn't, two of the main points I think are that it's what you don't see for sale. It's tough if you don't see it. If it's not for sale, not available, generally that means it's tougher if it's a better card. And the velocity of sales, tough cards can be measured by if they're put out, they sell immediately. 90, Mr. Mint's Entourage, got good feedback on that with Rich, a fun episode. We both knew those and know those guys because a lot of them are still around. Mr. Mint is not, but behind every successful dealer, there probably are some support people that really add to the success of the enterprise. And Mr. Mint was definitely the persona, the front man, but he had some great guys working with a division of labor that made a lot of sense and was fun to watch in action. 1291, the Panini football boxes and more. Again, every time I get some boxes, I want to review them, but I don't want to make it just a review like anybody else. And so I try to add some more stuff, and you could check the summary for that. 1292 was a sort of whimsical. I went to this lunch. It was about yachting, and I thought I could never live on a yacht. That's been affirmed. Where would my cards be? And so I want to be in a house or a place, an apartment, whatever it is, that is safe for my cards, that I can enjoy my cards. And that was just fun to track all the different places I've lived. And people like that. 1081 to 1090 were 10 different card wall videos where I went from Raphael up through Philip Rivers. I do 8 or 10 or 12 players or cards each time. What's under consideration for that panel of 8? And again, every one of them has at least one card I'm sure you haven't seen. Be shocked if people had seen all the cards because some of them are pretty obscure. So I'm up to the R's. I'll probably do another group in early 2025 when I get some more cards back from BGS. 1293, the How Should Collectors Vote? That was somewhat controversial to a few people. Again, I think collectors as a group have interest in the issues that were in the election. The election has been decided, and I'll leave it at that. But I think if we can have civil conversations about issues, that's good. And some of the issues in the culture at large do affect collecting. 1294, the Outtakes from Off Topic, same deal. That's Greg Miller's show with Darren. They were asking me questions. Greg had been on before. And when that happens, and I'm like on for an hour, again, I strongly recommend that you just go listen to the whole thing. But I will edit out the questions that I think I haven't already answered or haven't answered in a way that's fuller. So thanks, Greg and Darren, for drawing that out. 1295, another 10 listener questions. 1296, Waters Creek Show Report. I don't know that there's a better show. If there is, I'd like to go to it. But right now, Kyle is doing a great job and has the right configuration of old and new. Like I said, this was the one where I made some forays into the hockey market in preparation for going up to Toronto. And so I had lots of other observations. And again, trying to make them evergreen where that show's past. But I'm a lifelong learner. I hope you are too. 1297 was the Metal Universe Hockey kind of review. I looked at their most recent product that came out. Thank you, Upper Deck. But frankly, that product had to be, historically, we put it on a pedestal, but it probably was a flop. It probably was a financial flop. The production values were much higher. I'm sure it was way more expensive than the other products that we're doing, and not based on the materials, but the design and the execution of some of the treatments that they had. And I'm really glad that it's being brought back. It's one of my favorite products. But at the time, it was ahead of its time. So again, I wanted to draw that out. That doesn't mean we shouldn't bring it back. And Upper Deck's doing a great job with it. And then the last two were this retrospective of 40 years since Beckett Baseball Card Monthly. The first issue was November of 1984, and I worked on it in the summer, and the rest is history. So Mike interviewed me, and he's going to pull it together for an article that will go in the whatever the issue is that celebrates that. So again, thank you, Mike. Appreciate your friendship and your excellence. I look forward to seeing how you do it. Again, he can just take what we said, and he took some notes and recorded it. He's just an excellent writer. I'm just editing the audio and deleting things. We talked for an hour, and this is 25 minutes worth altogether. So again, thanks, Mike. Thanks, listeners. I will be back again over the weekend. Hope you have a great weekend. If you're going to a show, that's great. I'm not, but I set my show calendar and look forward to the next one. Thanks again.